YouTube. This is Geographic Scholar. Got a cup of coffee here. This cup of coffee is going to be kind of my visual aid for this video. This is part 2 of my Geography Awareness Week videos. Today, or at least in this video, we're going to be talking about coffee. And this is another thing of why geo-literacy is important. Now, think about this. You're enjoying that nice cup of coffee. Nice cup of coffee. You have it with a bit of milk. You have it with some sugar, or you have it on its own. You ever thought, perhaps, where does this coffee come from? Or how this coffee got here, or how much is this coffee gonna cost today? Well, in order to figure it out, you gotta know your geography. The United States is the #1 coffee importer in the world. We import more coffee than any other nation on earth. The USA does that. Brazil is the #1 coffee exporter and producer in the world. #1. We get, here in the US, we get large amounts of our coffee from Brazil, as well as Colombia and other nations in Latin America. And now there is one state in the US, only one US state, that grows coffee for commercial use, and that is Hawaii. And for obvious reasons, tropical climate. You go look at the Kona district. Now there are other areas on US soil, such as the US territory of Puerto Rico. You got coffee growing there, but aside from that, you got to consider some things about the geography of coffee. The US basically hardly grows any of its own coffee. That coffee's got to come from somewhere. And so a lot of it comes from Brazil, some comes from Colombia, and other places. Now, there are some people who might think, price of coffee is going up. Well, you got to think about geography right there. Consider this. In 1975, 1976, 1977, coffee prices started going up. Why? Well, that can be traced to meteorology. And it's like, what does meteorology have to do with this? Well, US gets a giant portion of its coffee from Brazil. And in 1975, 1976, 1977, Brazil's coffee crops were being reduced because of frosts. Now we think, this is Brazil. Brazil can't get frost. It's a tropical country. Well, this is where geographic literacy comes in. If one is geoliterate, one would know that perhaps there are places in Brazil that get frost and snow, particularly the far south parts of Brazil, such as Paraná, the state of Paraná, in the southern part of Brazil. Frost does occur in some places there, so does snow. You can get it there. So this shows you, go look at Brazil on a map. Brazil is such a vast country. It's more than just the Amazon rainforest. It's more than just the beaches. You've got the mountains. You've got places. You got so much there. You've got the interior region where you got cattle being raised. There's just so much. And that's part of why it's important to be geoliterate, why geoliteracy is important. Because think about this. You're drinking that cup of coffee. And You might think, well, what's the price of coffee today? The price of coffee today might be determined by what happens someplace far away from you. And suppose like could be a crop could be affected by weather, could be affected by drought, could be affected by frost. And if you're here and prices might rise because there's not as much coffee being shipped, and therefore less supply, while the demand stays the same, means prices are going to go up. And that is why geography awareness is so important. This is Geographic Scholar with part 2. Stay tuned for another video, which will also be talking about coffee culture.